Jacob Warren, the Warren Report, joins us now. We're just lucky to have you on the screen, Jacob. How are you, sir?
Comment said, just play all of them.
All at once.
All at once.
Yeah, it's Medicare Double D fire protection brought to you by Commercial Bank. All right, Jacob, let's get off and rolling. The Warren Report brought to you by Peak IV Hydration. They're in Sevierville, also South Knoxville, and they've got the patches. Caleb, if we can drop that in the chat. They've got the patches online, and Jacob, it works.
It does. Yeah, check out the link online and then in the chat there. Maybe try out a patch or go see them in person. Maybe even they got great staff and always willing to take care and give you what you need. You know, I mean, they listen and they, are just there to help. So just happy to be able to be working with them. So go check out the link and see if it's something that works for you.
Okay, so we think that Nico Iamaleava is going to be healthy and ready to go against Georgia. So I want to work under that assumption. Things can happen during the week.
Sure.
Josh Heupel can be overly optimistic, but let's work on that assumption.
Sure.
On that assumption that he's ready to go, how close is this offense to being like 2022 level? Can it even get to that point? Does it need to get to that point? Just what did you see offensively before Nico was out for the second half?
Yeah, I think overall, it's tough to compare the two, right? And we've had this conversation again on the show in the past of just these teams are very different and they're built a little bit different just in the way that, I think this team relies a lot more on its defense versus the team I was on in 2022 relied much more on its offense, right? There was great defensive players and we had a good defense and all this other stuff, but, we went out there and said, we're going to score 45, 50 a game. Doesn't matter who you are. You know what I'm saying? You did it against Alabama. You do it against all these other teams that are really, really good teams. Now, this team says, we're just going to keep you from being able to score more than 20. And if we score 3 touchdowns, then game over, right? Like seems to be maybe not what they're going for, but it seems to be, what's happening, right? And if it works, it works. That's great. So I think, you say, can this offense be as good as that 2022 offense? I think it's just as good, but just in a different regard, right? I think they're different. They're better at different things, and they're finding different things that are working for them. You just can't argue with the run game. You can't argue with Dylan Sampson 150 yards again. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just a lot of things that, again, like I'm saying, we had in 2022, but this one's a little bit different. And so, I to answer your question, I do think that this team is good enough to beat anybody, truly. You know what I'm saying? It just is a matter of, do you get that team that goes scoreless in the first half? Because I don't necessarily think you can do that against these really, really top tier teams, right? It happened against Alabama and you end up squeaking out with one. But, as you get to the later stretch of the season, like Caleb even mentioned earlier, and I hate to say it, Vandy's no slouch anymore. And so you can't really count them out. And you have a pretty good Georgia team. And I'm not going to – hopefully you won't ask me any handcuffing questions about what I think about this Georgia team. I might have just teed you up there. But, no, I think that we're in a good spot. And I think that, we can see a continue of the flourishment of our offense. And hopefully it continues to involve Dylan Sampson a whole lot because, man, he's really good.
So let it be known that Jacob just said Tennessee won't get away with not scoring in the first half against the really good teams, but they got away with it against Alabama. So he doesn't think Alabama's a good team. Jacob said it, not me. Yep. Jacob thinks Alabama's highly mediocre. You think they're basically UTEP, right, Jacob?
You're good at your job, Caleb. I'll say that. you're good at your
job. What did you – I know that you don't pay attention to the number because you're not a gambling degenerate like Caleb. But
Jacob, wait, for the record, I had an 11-leg parlay in the NFL yesterday. I hit 9 of the 11 legs. The only one I missed on was Saquon Barkley not scoring a touchdown and Garrett Wilson not going over 50 yards receiving because Aaron Rodgers decided he can't play anymore. I'm still mad about that.
So you know how much you won? Goose. All right. Way to go with the parlay, the old sucker's bet.
I would have won $1,500.
It was so good until it wasn't,
So good.
It's a lock, man.
So, but Jacob, like, To me, I mean, this is the number 4 or 5 team in the nation, depending on which rankings you want to go. And then the college football playoff will have their rankings. To be a double-digit favorite to anybody, I believe is insulting. And I know you guys probably didn't pay close attention to the line, but this is something I would use as a motivating factor. I do know that Philip Fulmer would do this occasionally, and this is way before your time, but did it in 2001. That was the 9-11 game when Tennessee played at Florida late in the year, and Tennessee was like a 14.5 point favorite and won.
You mean underdog? No, they were an 18 point. They were an 18 point underdog.
Yeah, and
it was 2 top 5 teams.
So, I mean, can that be motivation, or is that just something players don't think about?
Yeah, I think you hear it, but it's the same thing you talk about, like we're talking about Saturday mornings, right? When you're watching College Game Day or whatever. I think that honestly was the point of the week when I realized kind of how everybody felt about our game, right? I didn't look at media, I didn't look at anything, but on Saturdays I sat down, and again, most of the time we had night games, so I would sit down and I'd start watching College Game Day. I'd start watching the other games and stuff, and you go through and you watch Pat and you watch Lee and you watch Kurt, you watch all these guys choose the other team. You're like, hold on a second, no, that's not what we're doing. Like, that's not how it's fun. That's not how it's going to go. All this other stuff. So, to me, honestly, I got more fire and more, I guess motivation just from seeing people talk about the game. And that was something that I avoided all week. And so that was my dose of it on Saturday mornings when we watch Game Day. But I can't speak for everybody, you know what I'm saying? But that's kind of my experience on the only information I would take in would be College Game Day or watching the TV, watching other games during the week. So.
Jacob, guess where I used to call Lee Corso to be on the show that I was producing at the time, Sports Talk with John Wilkerson and Jimmy Himes. You want to guess?
I don't have a guess.
Okay, it was a landline, and it was at a pencil factory. He worked at a pencil factory, literally, and just did College Game Day on the weekends for fun. So I'd call the number 2 pencil factory, and I'd say, could I speak to Lee Corso? And he'd go, hey, how's it going? That's when those guys are easy to get.
Jake, now that you say, I got an honest question, because Dave and I come from a different time period where, before Pat McAfee, it was like Lee Corso was just sharp as a tack, and just so quick-witted.
He's not now?
No, because of his age and he speaks more slowly. I still love him. His mind is still all there. Don't get me wrong. But Jacob, I got to ask you this question: who's more triggering and frustrating when they pick against you, Lee Corso or Pat McAfee? Who just really grates you more?
Well, you see, the problem with Pat is that he's always so over the top, right? Anytime he's always making a call, right? It's never just, guys, I think they got a really good run game. I'm taking Tennessee. It's never that. It's always, he always makes fun of somebody, right? Starts singing one team's chant or their fight song, and then, changes it up or keeps it, whatever. So he's all about just the rouse of the fans and the crowd, which is amazing. I think it's amazing for College Game Day. I think truly he has done so much for that program and just for everything that they do. But dude, something about Lee calling against you is just like, what are you talking? Like, come on, dude. Like, what are you looking at? And then he puts the helmet on, and you're like, God, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
About it. That little wave I did earlier too. It's just, I don't know. You hate to see that whenever he's not rooting for you.
Did you see? By the way, over the weekend, I don't want to be too graphic here, even though we probably can because we don't have FCC regulations. That somehow Pat McAfee got LSU fans to chant that Alabama likes providing a service to other.
Correct.
Yeah. Did you see?
I saw it. Have you ever been to LSU? Have you been to their stadium?
Oh yeah. I've covered several games there. It's
pretty wild. To make them do it on live television is.
I know. Did you see what it was, Caleb?
I've read about it.
Yeah, it was a little strong.
Jacob, funny enough, when you guys played at LSU, Dave and I both said the week before, we said, because we know the fans too, and a lot LSU and Florida are the 2 places where they are very lethargic if it's a noon game because they're just hungover. And we both said they should have moved the line like 7 points in y'all's favor when that kickoff was.
Change the game time. If they wanted to win that game, you should have played it at night because, well, first of all, we were all super excited to go play there at night. We wanted to play at night because we knew that was the environment you'd get. But yeah, dude, you pull up and it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's just kind of like, all right. And we went out there, and my boy Will Brooks, of course, we've had this discussion. Will Brooks put the game away, like literally first kickoff, and we were like, yeah, cool, it's wraps, because their stadium wasn't into it, they weren't into it. It was a whole thing.
Didn't they throw eggs at y'all's bus?
Dude, that's happened like so much. People just throwing stuff. I can't even remember, but that sounds right. And trust me, who cares? Like literally, who cares? I have my headphones on. People are like, "Oh, they're doing this." I'm like, "Whatever, dude."
I want to get to Timothy McGee with the super chat real quick because thank you, Timothy, for the $10. But I
goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. As long as Caleb doesn't gamble it away, Quincy's now what, 5 months old?
Yeah, he is 5 months.
Hopefully the next parlay hits.
Yes, exactly.
$10 will go a long way on DraftKings, man.
Yeah,
$10 go a long way.
All you got, you know what? All you got to do is hit one, Jacob. All you got to do is hit one. You hit one, except for all your losses in a fight.
You don't have to explain to me, brother. I get it.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is actually a really good question too. So he's asking about Heupel's offensive scheme not being creative in the run. I want to answer it, but I want to give your thoughts. My understanding is the run game in y'all's scenario is I'm sorry, I pulled it back up again. 1 second. The run game in y'all's scenario is much more vertical, right? There's not a lot of stretch plays. It's much more vertical to try to bring people in to have those big shots. Isn't that the point of the run for Josh Heupel's offense?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's let me think. I'm really trying to think back to all of our different options and everything like that. We're very big on vertical displacement from an offensive line. So if our guys can take their steps and can get fit, right, and we can go that way, that means our little guy back there can kind of just ride this wave and then find a seam and then hit it, right? Like that's kind of how a lot of the run game is built. Obviously there's man runs and there's zone runs, there's gap runs. There's a bunch of different things that a lot of people, I wouldn't say, and I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence here, a lot of people wouldn't understand the difference between a lot of them. And a lot of people wouldn't be able to just look at a structure or look at, where the ball hit or how the offensive line blocked it and be able to tell you, okay, that's one back power, that's counter, that's gap, that's punch. Like there's a lot of different nuances to the run game and stuff that a lot of people, I guess, maybe don't realize. And I truly think that I felt like I've seen a lot of different things that I never did, right? Things that I'm looking at, and whether they're, super diverse within themselves, I don't know, but I do see a lot of things that I did not run, if that makes sense, right? I'm watching our two tight ends and the different things they're able to do with both of those guys and inserts and on the edges, and you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of really cool misdirection stuff that they're doing that I literally have conversations with our coaches about and our younger guys. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. It's a sweet run. Like that was really cool. And they're like, yeah, we put that in last week. It's like, they kind of just came up with it and just thought, hey, we might as well do this. And so, me personally, from what I've seen, I see a lot of nuance. I see a lot of new different little tweaks and things like that. But I also can understand how you would be like, why is it just like, okay, run for 2 yards, let's run the same thing, just split cut, like, and just get it over with. And I think that there is some merit in that. It was a Timothy, I think, that asked. Yeah, Timothy, I think you do have a pretty good point. But for me personally, looking at it, I think it is pretty cool. I think some of the stuff they do is pretty creative, but I also can acknowledge the fact that there are some things that it seems like it just gets a little bit, I don't know if redundant's the right word, but there could be some more creativity, I guess. There's room for that, yeah.
I even saw them pull Cooper at one point, which is pretty difficult for a center. Portions of the program, and we certainly appreciate Jacob Warren's visit. Portions of the program brought to you by Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Jacob, what are your thoughts on a running back knowing the position, knowing how to read his blocks? Because I would bet you if you put Peyton Lewis and Dylan Sampson through an NFL pro day, that Peyton Lewis right now would probably be the more impressive just out of that pro day.
Sure.
But there's something to be said for patience, setting up your blocks, putting a foot in the ground and going. And to me, Dylan Sampson is like an 11 on a scale of 1 to 10 in that regard. Not to knock Peyton Lewis. I think that takes some time. But for those that wonder why Cam Seldon and Peyton Lewis hasn't played, that's kind of been my answer. Now Peyton has. But am I on to something there? Do you think that's fair?
You are. Yeah, I think you I'm trying to think back. You think of people like, Chris Johnson, right? Darren Sproles, just any back in the league, right? That's not a huge guy. Like Peyton is a large man, right? Big arms, big chest, big muscles, big legs, all that sort of stuff. And Dylan's the same way. He's just not quite as tall and not quite as big, whatever. So physically impressive, like, yeah, of course you're going to have these guys that are just like tanks that can run fast, that are strong, that are, can push the pile, all this other stuff. But, and I think Dylan, first of all, can do that. But second of all, like you watch, it was kind of the wide zone off the left, the one he scored on, right? It was the first one he came back after he was kind of like, okay, is he okay? Is he all right? And he kind of plays to the left and then kind of rides one or two blocks and then is patient through the hole. But then the second that he actually clears that first level, it's like nobody's catching him. Like he knows exactly where he needs to get, how he needs to fit. And you see his offensive line like working upfield. He knows exactly where to be behind it. Like there's a lot of really cool things that you watch that just look like it just happens and look like, oh, he just ran. He just was like, oh, there's just some space here. But no, he understands exactly where his guys are and he understands exactly where their guys are. And I promise you, he's shiftier, more athletic, and has better balance than pretty much anybody else on the field. So when you add those two things together, just his knowledge and just his understanding of mostly where my guys are, like where are the people that are protecting me, he can kind of take risks and he knows exactly where he needs to be defensive about. And that is the sign of an elite back. That's the reason why he rushes for over 120 every single game, is because he might have some runs like that get kind of whatever, and it's just ones and twos, but he turns ones and twos into fours and fives just based on his talent. And that's just a very, very special quality in a back.
Jake, I'm not sure when you logged in, but I get these weird feelings 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm picking Tennessee to beat Georgia early in the week, which I never do. I have a weird feeling that Georgia's not that good and that Tennessee's defense is truly special. And I know it's Monday. I'm not asking you to make a prediction at this point, but how do you feel about the game?
Yeah, obviously I'm going to tell you Tennessee's going to win, right? And that's not just because obviously I'm a fan and I played there, but I will say if any time to do it would be now. And that is how I feel about the Georgia team, if that makes sense. If any time to beat them, it's right now. So I think, they coming off of a rough week, right? They might be kind of frustrated, might be kind of, whatever. But if you can go out there and truly enforce your will, and our D-line just go out there and just actually dominate the line of scrimmage and just smother their run game, not give back time to get the ball off, like you're going to just have a lot of success the same exact way you have had in the past on defense. Offensively, establish a run game. It's going to be the same exact thing every single week. Establish a run game, be consistent in your run game, and then be able to hit shots, which we did last week. We hit shots, and that's what puts up points, right? These are just the keys to the game for any offense, but specifically our offense, because our running back is so dynamic and so good. And because we got guys like Dante who can have 3 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown and just like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you can trust those guys on the edge to get open and you can get the ball in their hands, then, then I truly it's going to be hard to stop any offense, let alone this one.
Golden stuff, Jacob. We appreciate it again. Peak IV Hydration.
Oh yeah. Go check them out. I'm right there with you. Go check the link out, man. Go see their patches, read up on what it's about, man. Educate yourself and see if it's something that works for you. If it is, that's amazing. You can find that link in the chat and go give them a shout.